All right, guys, today we have a great show for you all. We have Vin, Donielle, Greg, and Dave all ready to go. Vin, tell us what's going on.
Oh, wow. So thanks to you, Doug, I want to launch the Small Town Values podcast as a result of me understanding the challenges of farming in a small town, seasonal agricultural community. In addition, from what I understand, going around town, speaking with local business owners, we want to raise a little awareness for their struggles and hope to work a way forward, negotiate a way forward, dealing with the entire community and their values.
That's great. So why don't we have Dave and Greg with us today? Tell us about what our plan is here.
So for years now, I've been speaking with both Dave and Greg, one about business, but two about a way forward. I really, with Dave and his
Talking a lot.
talking and his chats.
Yeah, I mean, Dave's a
but
talker.
not just that, his actions.
He's a good talker.
Not just his talks, his actions.
Yes.
I love what Dave says. In addition, I really want, at the end of this, I'd like to bring in the moratorium, as I feel that would be a huge obstacle for business and farmers. Greg is on the show because, one, his business represents community.
Absolutely.
He's the local breakfast spot.
Food is love.
In the heart of the North Fork. So that's why I chose Mattituck and Mattituck business owners. And Doug, why are you on the show? But I'm on your
stuck
show.
here.
You're on my show.
I got nowhere else to go.
I like
I
your
didn't even want to be here
perspective.
today. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only
Doug,
kidding,
your
guys.
perspective, you bring valuable perspective. One, as you guys, I understand, are classmates. What year was that in Mattituck?
1996. We
96.
graduated in 1996.
Started in the heart of the North Fork.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. We've been here, entrepreneurs since we were 16. That's a
little
long run.
different.
That's
It's a little
30
different.
That's 30 years ago, bro. 30 years out in the North Fork.
And then Donielle, I am fortunate that she graced us with her presence and popped in to say hello, and now she's stuck on the show with
She
us.
is with us, and so is the dog.
I'm kidnapped.
And that was what, class of 2000?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, see? Who's
Love
on your
it.
side?
So, Dave, I'd like to start with you. And I don't even have a question for you. I want to hear what you have to say.
Wow. So you do know I'm the
Going
wrong
like
guy
that.
to
Okay,
just.
let me start with
Yes,
this.
you're
Okay,
going
I was
so
gonna
many
open-
different directions.
You run 24/7 operations, 7 days a week in a seasonal location. How do you do it?
Well, with a lot of faith and hope.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, so obviously I do have a lodging facility, and it is go time from now until usually the end of November, and pretty much through the holidays. But then all of a sudden, winter sets in.
Dave, what's the name of the facility?
It is called Cedar House on Sound Bed and Breakfast.
It's a beautiful spot. I've been there, but I just want to make sure everyone knew.
Thank you. I wasn't going to shamelessly plug it.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate that.
We're going to shamelessly plug each
Yeah,
other.
we're gonna plug.
now
We're
you're
gonna plug you,
live,
Dave.
you
We're
know.
gonna plug you up good.
I love it. Yeah, so no, it's definitely, here we are heading into the time of year. We're great. Phone rings, and you're like, no, I don't have any rooms, but, call these people. January comes, and you're just like, please call me, How do you do it? For me, it was really built on a philosophy. Our philosophy when we opened was that you would check in as guests and check out as friends. And
I love that. That's awesome.
Thanks. We had a young daughter at the time. She was 1 when we started, and we were first-time parents. And my wife looks at me and says, I just realized, we're gonna have strangers sleeping in our house.
Yeah. I don't know if this actually is the best thing for
And
our
I'm
family
like,
right
huh,
now.
not
weird.
creepy.
Not at all. I'm like, all right, well, let's
So
put
now
that in
this
the
is a
bad
true crime
parenting
podcast.
check column. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
no, really, my whole idea was, well, don't worry, I'm going to build a business on repeat guests. That's what it's all about. So that now, here we are 14 years later, and they embarrass her by going, look, I was giving you a bottle. Which actually true story for my son, because he wasn't born until 12. We'd already been open for 2 years. So everybody likes to point out that, yes, they were there. They love to tell them that we stayed here before you lived here.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it is a very cool thing, and that's honestly how I survive the off season, is really by all of our great regulars and who've really become extended family.
But you're also extremely involved in the community as a whole and play a really active role in trying to help the North Fork and all of the business owners on the North Fork to get through the slow season and do their best in the busy season.
Like parenting, we say it takes a village.
Yeah.
I believe that same concept goes with the business community, right? The whole idea of, and I'm just going to throw this out there, the Disney concept of, come to our property and stay on our property does not fit in a small town community. You need to be sharing guests. You need to be, and I like to kind of say
they
my
all
job
support
is
each other.
to be the concierge of the North Fork, right? Like I want to be able to help share everything, to every business, and starting with
You just referred somebody to me this weekend.
Yes.
Absolutely. 100%.
But I think you're actually, you're correct and incorrect in that I think it's just twisting the way that turning the way we look at it a little bit, in that it's not one facility, but it's come to the North Fork.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
if we can all work more cooperatively and treat each other as colleagues instead of competitors. I mean, Doug and I are in the same business, but I
Yes.
certainly don't look at him as a competitor. He's my friend and he's a colleague, and we're all sharing the same goal. And I think all business owners on the entire North Fork are sharing the common goal of trying to create not only a successful business, but create a lifestyle for ourselves and our families. This is our home.
This is our home, and
It's
by
where
the
we
way,
live.
lifestyle.
Lifestyle.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
It's
the
a way
key.
of life.
It's
even
the way
better
of
than a
life,
lifestyle,
and
yeah.
I think that's the real important element. I'm all about growth. I'm all about but responsible growth and maintaining,
Yeah.
our cultural integrity, our agricultural integrity. That's important to me.
Yeah, we were talking earlier in today, and we were saying it's nice to preserve the North Fork, but we want to make sure the North Fork stays the way we came to love the North Fork. It's good to come from other places. It's good to help us grow our community, but it's important to keep our community values. You came here for a reason. We stayed here for a reason. Some people say, "Oh, you're the leftovers." That's a comment I've heard, and I said, "Well, no, we were the smart ones that never left." And to be able to make a living on the North Fork is a challenge. There's no infrastructure here. There's not big manufacturing. We did have a large bank at one point that's not here anymore, and that supplied a lot of jobs. So we were fortunate enough to grind through the last 20 years before there was something to do out here. As kids, we had a beach to go to. We had the A&P shopping center. There was a couple things. Fortunately, your family, Donielle, has kept everything going for us in the infrastructure that's been there.
But it's us.
Yeah, well,
Entirely,
you had the
but
movie
it's a
theater there and you
contributing.
kept it going, and as long as you could. I mean, everything changes, but we were fortunate enough to be out here as long as we have been, and to be able to survive.
Well, and I think you're-
now thrive.
That's another key point, is that survival piece, right? And you had said grinding it out. Well, it is hard, and I do. I'm never a fan of any of these terms that I hear, but the leftovers. Well. Thank goodness you didn't leave.
Right,
Because Here's
exactly.
the problem: when you leave, try to come back.
You never come
now
back.
it's you can't afford it, right? And so that worries me for our kids. Like I know, all right, how are they going to do this?
Well, that's a good point, and I know Donielle would support me and feel the same way in this. Being in real estate is a great business, but when you're selling your local community and you're losing local values, when somebody moves, they're not coming back, and their kids are never going to be able to come back.
Although I have to say, I have a house in contract right now from a family that left and moved to Florida.
Okay.
They spent maybe a decade there, and they realized that there's nothing like the North Fork.
Nothing like it.
And they are now in contract to come back.
I love
to
that.
the North
That's
Fork.
even
So that's
great.
a success
Yeah,
story.
that's a success
but
story.
it's hard.
God bless them that they're
Yeah,
able to
'cause
do
when
that,
we
right? That's
lose-
awesome.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, that's not an option.
No,
But
when
I-
you sell, then we lose those values, and other states benefit from our education, which we all know, because we all have, Donielle, your kids are all now going to college, graduated, and they don't stay here. They can't stay here. So being able to build a business here and stay on the North Fork, which Vin was really passionate about preserving the North Fork and the values of the North Fork. So that's why I was just saying, in real estate, it's a little tough, because when we sell something and we lose a local person, it's great to have new people come in. We love and welcome that. but it's also hard because the values are different, and it's only natural for them to be different because they grew up somewhere different.
Absolutely.
And
But
that's
I
challenging.
think maybe their values aren't as different a lot of the time as people want to think they are. And we were talking
a good
about
point.
this podcast and like, you know, what's the mission statement or what are you trying to accomplish? And what I kept coming back to as what in what I was getting from what Vincent's, intentions were is that this is about removing the labels or the camps that divide us
Yeah.
and focusing on the values that unite us.
I love that.
And, it's
Well said.
whether you
Thank
grew
you.
up in this small town,
Donielle.
some other small town, or in the big city, the reason people seek out this location, it's physically or, a place, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Because we don't sell real estate. We sell a dream. We sell, a way of life. We
Yes.
sell, I always tell people you're not investing in property, you're investing in your family, you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your happiness. And that's, your health. I mean, where can you live anywhere else where, what are we going to have for dinner? And we're like, well, let's stop at the farm stand and pick up some vegetables.
Fresh
and then we'll
eggs.
run over
Yeah.
to,
Fresh eggs,
yeah,
and
pick up
basic
eggs,
stuff.
pick up, fresh fish that was caught in our waters.
Non-processed foods.
Yeah, I mean, that is
Yeah.
health. Like, you're investing in your health.
Health as well.
Your children's health. Like, that. These are things you can't even put a value on. But I think, everyone shares more than we realize. And I think everybody wants to put everybody in different categories. But the truth is that everyone who's here is here because they love what this place is, what it has been, and what we want it to remain.
Yes.
We just differ in how we think we should get there. And, over the last years, I've heard so many people like, how can people think that way? And I include myself in that. And I realized I'm not listening for people's answer. How am I ever going to understand why they think that way or how they could think that way if I don't shut up
And listen.
and listen?
Well,
So this is a platform to
yeah.
let people talk with
Let them
different opinions.
tell their voice.
I'm quietly applauding.
Yeah, well, you have to understand there's a need behind the need. You know,
Yes.
in sales, which we all know, there's always going to be a reason that something has to be done, right? Nothing happens till somebody sells something. But if you're not listening, which none of us do, right? And no one really likes to listen; they like to talk, and that's why when Vin,
Especially in this room.
yeah, we're raising our hands, But Vin, Vin's past is so amazing that we talked about earlier is that he had to listen. He had to listen, and he had to be able to explain, what he was listening to his group when he was negotiating it. I mean, I don't know if everyone realizes he was a hostage negotiator, that there was so much listening and so much empathy and so much that he had to process so quickly. And I think that we all just want to talk, but we don't listen. And that's something that then your traits of being able to listen and then decipher information and then bring it to fruition, right? You got to take that and be able to make it all happen. It's amazing. And what you're trying to do, your initiative is fantastic. And I think we're all here to support that.
Absolutely.
So I like to say we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, because we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak. If we do that, and we do listen to the entire community's values, now we need to evolve, right? Inflation is killing us. We're not seeing the number of visitors overall on the North Fork. From what I understand, and I'm going to throw out a guesstimate of what I have to say, I feel some businesses are down, most businesses are down a rough 20% prior to COVID. Now we're talking 2019 numbers. So COVID was
Well, it's funny. I actually say that when you want to start looking at comparisons, you really need to go to 2019. 2020, 2021, and even 22 were kind of anomalies, right? Like it was something that first 20 was and then 21, 22 was. Yeah, exactly. It was low to yay. So it's not real. Those
and we
aren't
don't
real
have
figures.
2019 prices on fuel, on
Exactly.
services, on goods. Right now we have post-COVID numbers. So inflation, coupled with people, I think, fleeing New York State, is why I just saw Love Lane on what's today, Thursday, at 11 a.m. with 6 cars on it.
Well, this is probably going to be wildly unpopular, but I'm also going to say that I think some of that is due to not only inflation, but egoflation. We are and have started pricing people out. And that's a problem. Yeah. You know, why is there not as many people out here? Because they can't afford to come out here. It's expensive. And I'm not saying, oh, shame on us, because guess what? All of our prices, right, everything's gone up. But it is a problem, and we've got to figure out where that balance is, you know.
And it's a really tricky one because it's not that we have priced people out. The economy has priced people out of life in general.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I remember getting a job at $5 an hour and thinking, hey, that's
I was $4.25 an hour, Strong's Marine, digging holes, and I loved it.
And like we thought we were making money.
Yeah.
Like I remember getting like $5 an hour. This is a good job.
My daughter just got her first job. She's 14, and I said, "How much are they gonna pay you?" She's like, "I think they start at like $16 to $17." I said, "An hour? You know what I mean, or a day? You know what I mean?" I was like, "I can't believe it." And you know, I guess 30 years went by pretty quick.
Well, I love trying to explain that to my guests, right? When they're saying, "Oh, this restaurant," or "Oh, this establishment," whatever it is, you know, it's so expensive. I said, "Yeah, well, when your, you know, entry-level person is making $16 an hour,
Right.
And then, oh, by the way, don't forget about payroll tax."
Yeah, and I love my
So
daughter,
it's
but at
payroll
14,
tax.
she has nothing to offer. You know,
right.
like she's not. You know,
Hey.
no, but she's not.
I like that kid.
But she, you know, she can't. She's not there yet. You know,
I just read this yesterday. McDonald's is everywhere, right? We're all going to agree with that. They're up 143% in their prices since 2019.
Right.
and they're trying to do something,
Since
right? Lower the
but I'm
prices
just,
now.
so
Yeah.
if McDonald's,
McDonald's.
is,
Right.
how am I not supposed to be? How are
Exactly.
you not supposed
And
to
oh,
be?
by the way, what did McDonald's do? They replaced 50% of their $16 an hour staff with kiosks.
Exactly.
Because they have the money to do that. So
Yep.
fine, you want to play the game? We'll play
But
the
it's
game.
also inevitable. I always say to people, it's got that those kind of things are going to trickle down eventually.
Right.
Because you can't keep paying your daughter. My payroll's through the roof right now. I'm like,
insane.
some days I just like, I'm paying you. I have a joke with the guys. I said, all right, you guys come in. I want every morning you come in and you tell me where you're at. You were hungover last night, no problem.
Yeah.
You're at 70%. Today you get 70% of your pay.
There you go. That would
Is
be
that
great.
fair?
That would be
Because
great.
we're all paying. Everybody's got to pay all these people so much more money, but the production isn't the same. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, exactly.
So that's a major. The staffing and all that kind of stuff is a major problem. But the prices are just you got to pay these people.
Great.
You
Tell
do.
everyone the name of your deli.
So I'm Ammirati's of Love Lane. We're coming up on 10 years there.
Wow, 10 years
Yep.
already.
I grew up out here. So I've seen the change. It's something Donielle said that was really interesting. We're a lot closer or more like our thought process is a lot more closer than we give each other credit for.
In line, absolutely.
Every morning, the guys come in and they complain about this, and this. But when you really listen and then start talking to the couple that bought a house from Rockville Center, they just want to be a part of it out here. They love it out here. My parents bought a house out here in '85 and raised us out here because of the same reason. So there's no real difference, and maybe we differ on certain things, but they appreciate out here. They want to live out here. They want to enjoy out here, just like we all do. So it's not, when you really listen to it, we're not that far off. We just don't have I've said this to Vince, in my opinion, we just don't have a plan. Nobody knows what we're doing.
We
Like-
do have a plan.
We actually have
and
a plan.
They don't use it.
Well, that's
called
okay.
a comprehensive
That's-
plan.
Yes, but that's.
And-
I like the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of that's what I'm saying. Otherwise, because now it's just where are we going?
Right.
Certain
Right.
things we can't go back. We're not gonna. Otherwise, my wife and I wouldn't be able to live here.
Exactly.
Right.
And
You
Greg,
know,
to
like-
piggyback on what you just said, and obviously what Donielle had said, I think it's interesting because I think people almost have it wrong in some sense. We like to go, oh, the new people who came out here, no, actually, they're sometimes the ones that are more in opposition of growth than.
120%.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because, look, I'm going to share a story, and this is going to also get me in big trouble. So
That's what we're here for.
I signed a waiver.
Yeah, you signed the waiver. Listen, the waivers have been signed.
I'll never forget
let's
when
put
I
it
got
out
the
there.
phone call a couple years ago asking me to participate in the Dark Skies night, which is great, really cool, fun. Except for it's kind of hard as a lodging establishment to shut your lights off when you have guests.
With
It's
slip
called
and
a
fall, the
liability.
digits.
I did not
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
you to
yeah.
sign the Dark Skies waiver.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yeah,
check
yeah.
in
You gotta
that
have the
can't
waiver,
see.
it's all about the waiver.
So I didn't do it, right? Obviously, I said, well, I'd love to participate in the Earth Day promo, but sorry. And ironically, 2.5 weeks later, I I see a car pull in my driveway, and I'm doing some yard work, and I notice a town seal, and I was like, oh, so-and-so, and good to see you. And, oh, code enforcement's here. I said, what's the code enforcement? What? Yeah, I don't know. Something about excessive use of lighting. And I said, when did that come? April 20th?
Yeah.
How'd you know? I said, oh, because I didn't participate in a dark skies program, so probably somebody got mad.
Right.
And I'm just saying, like, okay, hold on. Now, these are some of those things that you have to remember that we are still conducting business. We do have, you know, we all have bills to pay. We have young mouths to feed. And no, we also have things to protect, like people's safety. I think it's great, but there's always going to be a little bit of a disconnect or an imbalance. Not intentionally. I'm all for dark skies. Just can't be in my driveway. You know?
Well, I think
But
the problem is, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is that, you know, people come up with these ideas, but they don't think about how it's going to affect everyone that
Everybody
ideas.
else.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and I teach my son this all the time because I love him to death, but he doesn't understand the ripple effect. And I use this all the time. I said, Doug, you have to understand. You throw a rock in the water, the rock disappears, but the ripples keep going, and it keeps expanding and bigger and bigger. So the things you do, you might affect somebody else in a good way or a bad way. The ripple could be a great way, but most of the time, the things you're doing, it's not. And then it's gonna affect. It's like the big boat that passes by and you don't see the boat anymore, and then the waves come in and they crash and they hit the beach and they damage things. I'm like, so the things we do could either be a positive ripple effect or a negative.
That is
And we see a lot.
quality dad advice. by
That's
the way.
yeah.
We're getting deep on
Yeah, no, but I don't know if he listens to me yet, but I'm gonna tell him that.
How old is he?
Eventually,
He's
he
12.
Philosophy
He's not
is
listening.
about
No,
Doug
not
Yeah.
at all.
Cabral.
Until
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
35.
Deep thought
no,
by
he's-
Doug Cabral, but it's true. And I tell him that. I said, but that's everything. If you think about it in business, when we train out, you know, in real estate, we train agents. But in life, well, we're training people, right? We're all training. And it's like the way things we do affect so many other people in a day, right? And like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's have a dark sky. But now somebody trips and falls on your property. They get sued, okay? You get sued. And now you have a claim on your insurance. Now, I've been in insurance 20 years. You know what? The more claims you have, then carriers don't want to write you. And you know what? The town's not going to say, well, we had a dark sky compliance night and, you know, the claim shouldn't happen. No.
Right.
Somebody
It's not how
tripped,
that
they
works.
fell,
Right.
they got hurt.
not the real world.
Right? Trip and fall is very probable with lights on.
Right.
Okay? Give them a night out on the town. Come back to a room with no lights on. They're going to probably fall. And then it's your
By
responsibility.
the way, the irony is this: I actually hear almost every morning at breakfast from the people who come back at night from dinner, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's so dark on your roads." And our first response is, "Yeah, we pay extra for that."
Well, I'm going to tell you something funny. I grew up in Whitestone, Queens, and this was a summer house. So we'd come out here, and I remember a friend of ours, James, and Benny, they'd be like, let's sneak out and let's go meet each other like 2 a.m. And I was like, bro, in Queens, there's street lights. If someone's coming at you, you have a bat, you're ready, you can hear them. Out here, there's raccoons jumping out of trees. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere at 2 a.m. There's not even lights. It's pitch darkness
That's the
out
best
here.
part out here.
Yeah, but it's so true.
I got a question for Greg. Greg, we've had this conversation many times. Would you describe for your business how many hats you wear as far as, whereas if you weren't the owner operator, let's say an investor owner were to employ additional people for those tasks, would you describe how many hats you wear and what that value would mean to the investor non-operator?
If I wasn't there, it wouldn't run. It's not going to happen. They're not going to care like I care. They're not going to do that. It's just never, there's just not going to be enough in the pie. Because if you're going to pay, Dave will probably say too, or Doug, if you're not there, you have to pay 2 other people or 3 other people, you know, and then the
Still not
pie,
the same.
it's still not the same.
So the business model is not
Not
sustainable.
the same. People have said to me about
even
opening
kind.
another
You
place.
can't do
You
it.
can't do it. I would love to because the idea of it is great.
But you can't clone yourself.
And I'm
I'm the
speaking
guy,
about
like,
Right.
people like, they come in because I'm like, I'm blessed where in the sense where I'm a real local place. But then I also get a lot of out of town, like the summer people too. So I get the best of both worlds.
Right.
So I'll get the everyday guy that will come in and get his stuff, and you know I know him by his
best
name,
part.
and those are the things that I'm lucky for because then I get the overflow in the summer too. Like so, my season is different than most people out here. But if I wasn't there, and I'm not trying to pat my act like Johnny Big
No,
Shot,
you
but you
just
just
gotta do
can't. They're not going to do. You can't.
I come in to
With
see
too many
you-
things are so like I know I was
crazy.
I was upset I didn't have a Snapple today.
Oh, yeah. Well, I come in there, I'm like, do you have any samples? There's no Snapple.
No,
I'm
it's
like,
not. Try the Joe tea.
But-
But like everybody, they like that because that means something. Like now, those people that come, like there's a really nice guy. They come in and we joke around like we've started a relationship. They're not from here.
No.
But they're nice. Like people have this thing like, oh, we're the leftovers, the
Right.
out of towners. Nobody's from here anymore. It's the
No,
funniest
no,
thing.
no,
If you
I don't
talk
know
to
anybody
anybody, like
anymore.
people like, oh, when did you guys open? 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Where were you from? I lived right down the street.
Yeah,
Like there are
yeah.
people that grew up out here, are
Yeah.
still here, raising their families here.
Yep.
Not everybody's like all these transplants. We're a lot more like on the same page than I think the whole perception is. But for the business sense, when you start doing the math, like you said, payroll tax and the payroll and the cost of goods, you just can't.
Well, I asked you a question one day when I walked in and your chicken cutlet sandwich to me is heaven. I can't get enough of it. I mean,
Paradise?
It is paradise. And I asked you one day.
Just
No,
see
I
what I
He
did?
doesn't get
You see what I
bacon.
did there?
But I
He
was
doesn't get
watching,
bacon.
but I was watching,
He's
and
very health conscious.
I saw all the look at me, I'm the pinnacle of health, and I saw all the bacon, and I was like, bro, how much bacon do you cook in a day? Tell people this because no one.
There's one kid that all his job will be this weekend is cook bacon. He'll cook bacon, clean the trays, cook bacon again. This weekend we'll go through about 120 pounds
120
Just in
pounds
the
of
weekend.
bacon.
just this weekend. That's great. We go through on like a day like before I left, Chewy said, "Hey, we're low on bacon." I ordered more, but we'll go through right now like Monday through Thursday about 30 pounds a day.
So if anyone's looking to get into agriculture, there is a market need for
Yeah, a lot of pork. Yeah, I had the pigs. I did have the
I
pigs
have
at
to
one
name it's
point.
chicken and bacon would be the next name of the place.
And
That's
that's
what
Really?
I'd call it. If I
Vegetarian.
ever opened another place, it would just be chicken,
Chicken
and
and
bacon.
bacon.
We
Wow.
go through so much. It's
But
ridiculous.
how crazy are the costs of bacon? Honestly,
Oh, it's crazy. It used to, like the egg should be.
because there's a lot of different qualities.
Egg should be like under $1. They're $2.39, $2.49. Chicken should be like $1.69. It's $3.29. So
God.
like the bacon is $3.29. Like it should be
Right.
around the $1.89.
So to make an egg sandwich,
everything's double.
a bacon, egg, and cheese is pretty much
Well, we were just talking
all
about
expense.
I have to raise the prices, and you try to be fair because I always said like breakfast should be $10. Lunch should be, you start doing the math on these things. How can people afford it? So you don't want to price them out because you want the repeat. How do you want to
you want them to come in.
Do you want them to come in every day or do you only want them to come in twice a week? It's
Right.
just hard.
Right.
But at some point, when you start going to other places and you're like, well, he's like, go to Dunkin' Donuts. Their egg sandwich is $5.
Right.
Where do they make the eggs?
Right.
There's no guy cracking eggs. There's no bacon cooking. So why
get
can't
what
I?
you pay
Why
for.
can't I get a little? Why can't I just get a little more? You
Right,
want to be
right.
like. But
This is homemade,
sometimes,
it's fresh.
right? But sometimes you get the backlash from people. They get upset. But it's like, hey, listen,
But
man.
you can understand their frustration when you realize there's no way, and that's what we were kind of starting to go to before. There's no way you can offer the quality of product that business owners, especially restaurants on the North Fork, offer with any lower pricing than what they're doing. In fact, it's still not even high enough for them to actually make a living off of.
Correct.
No.
But then you look at what a living wage is, and we can't afford to you go, well, how can a business afford to pay somebody more when $16 an hour? I'm listening to you guys talk about that and go, really? Who can you get to work for $16
Well,
an hour?
that's what I meant. Like, I
Because
don't need
that's
anything
the
bad
problem.
about my daughter.
it's more like $20 to $25
that's
an
really
hour
bad. Yeah.
for basic labor, not anything. I mean, not even super skilled, but $20 to $25 an hour. They don't even want to talk to you. So, but at the same time,
And by the way, those are kids.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why I was saying, my
But-
daughter, I love it.
They're like, I'm gonna need 25 an hour.
But
And you're
at
like,
14 years old.
And then you're like, wow, you're serious, aren't
Yeah, how can you do it
But-
at 14 years old? How much? I don't mean that she doesn't have a value, but I'm saying she hasn't learned anything yet.
Right.
They have to train her. So to train somebody $16, $17 an hour. I mean, listen, she's a super smart girl,
She'll
but
pick it
she
up.
has to
Learn.
be trained, and
Right.
training pays $16
Training
an
pay,
hour.
by the way.
So how many hours?
So that
do
means you have someone with that person, right?
Right.
So 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever
So it's
it is.
$32 an hour to train my daughter, who I love
Exactly.
to death, to be a hostess or to whatever the process is. So think about that. It's $32.
She is your daughter, though, so I think
She's gonna get it quick.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
get it quick. But let's just say it takes her 10 hours. That's a $320 investment.
Yes.
Now, what if my daughter that says, "I don't like this job," and she leaves?
Which they do.
And it
Which they
happens.
do.
Hey, and it
right?
goes to the next person who wants $24 an hour because she has training.
Right. So if I train 10 people as the business owner and they leave, that's $320 times 10 is $3,200. So as a small business owner, you're not getting that back.
No.
Right?
And
And
you
I think
can't
that's the
afford to
struggle
lose that.
is
Absolutely.
constantly having to come up with this money. Go ahead, Ben, sorry.
We're not talking about greed here. We're talking about necessity.
Basic.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not greed, it's need.
Need.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And by the way,
going
look
back to
around.
what
Help
you-
wanted signs everywhere still, right? So don't tell me 16 is going to do anything for you.
No.
Well, and
But
to
they
what
also
you were
don't
saying
want 'em.
about, what is it? You said $10 for breakfast, 20 for lunch.
Yeah.
Dinner's at least 30.
way.
So you say, okay, that's $60 at least a day to feed yourself. Now,
Right.
God forbid you have a family. You think about, my son is, at an age, he's in his early 20s, he's starting out, and he's like, Mom, I got to work half the day just to eat.
Right. Just to eat. Right?
Just to eat.
Just to eat.
Then
the
I got to
basics.
put gas in my car. Then he's like, I can't even
It's a
make
business.
the ends meet.
It-
Yeah.
So let's go back to what he was asking. Ben was asking specifically. And now I know the answer to this because I sell businesses, right? And being a business broker, most people don't want to sell until things aren't going as well. And they don't groom their business 3 years prior to selling. They'll make a lot of money, but they don't show it. So a business has a certain recipe, right? You're the DNA in your business, okay? You've been in this business, but I don't think people realize you've been in this business before you were on your own your whole life.
yeah. My
Since
parents
we were in
had
high
some- yeah.
school. I mean, you've been doing this forever. So when he says, how would the business operate with or without you? The perpetuation of your business, what does it look like if you weren't there tomorrow? God forbid.
Oh, no,
you
I-
weren't there tomorrow.
My
what
wife
happens?
knows, like, tomorrow, God forbid something happens to me, just sell it.
Yeah.
Don't even try to run it. It's not worth. It's not just. I'm blessed with a great landlord and things like that. Just get out. Put a fair number on it. Let somebody else do it. Because you
That's the way
can't.
to do
Because if you don't know everybody, it's like Dave will laugh at this because it's the restaurant business. Let me own a restaurant. Right. This business sucks.
Yeah, this is blood. This is
It's
blood.
tough.
There's
Like,
no
you know what I mean?
glamour.
Only people who want to be in the restaurant business are people who have never been,
Been
in,
in
the
the
restaurant,
restaurant
business.
business.
Like I laugh, like people come, I'll do that. No way. Like I love where I am. You know, like the whole situation for me was awesome.
Ideal.
Coming back to the block I grew up in, raising my kids here. My wife is from Atatuck, so it was awesome.
The best.
Being a part of the community, the school's right there.
You are the community.
It's been great. Having that impact is really, it's really means a lot to my wife and I. But otherwise, like if somebody said, "Hey, you want to go open one in Miller Place?" No way.
No,
Like it's
no.
not. It's just a.
It's not a scalable model that you want to do. There's
Yeah,
other things you
and
would
people
rather
don't
do.
realize like it's just what goes into it. Like I wouldn't know what goes into real estate but it's what I love. I grew up in it, and
Right,
it's
it's
I
what you
now
know.
looking at this now at this point in my life, it's like what else would I do?
No.
You know what I mean? But like,
But
what
it
do you
has
do?
to be in your DNA.
Exactly. That's what
in
I'm
order
saying.
to do that business.
Yes.
Like we had a restaurant many years ago, and
It was the best.
It was
We-
at the
listen,
time,
we
but it
all
was good.
we all had great memories at your place.
I can't
you
tell
know?
you how many people have said, I met my husband, I met my wife at the, because it was like the only place, especially for then young people were not young
Thanksgiving
anymore.
Eve, the place
Yo,
was
that was
rocking.
legendary.
Those were the best nights.
Yeah.
I remember being at your place, and that was the place to be. Do you remember? That was
Yeah,
where
yeah, for
everyone
sure.
would go.
Well, I remember when we opened, and some of the people who worked for, we were young, but some of the people that came in or worked for us, they said, oh, why are you targeting the younger crowd? And I was like, well, the people who are older already have their spots, but the young people have nowhere to go, and they'll grow with us. And we wound up, and that's kind of actually interesting segue because we talk about all the hats you have to wear. And ultimately, what we learned very quickly was this is not a highly populated area. This is not, you know, it's not New York City. You can't have a French fry store. You have to be some degree of all things to all people, which is normally not a great business model. But on the North Fork, you have no choice because you have so little to pull from. You've got to have something for everybody. So in our restaurant, we had, you know, a family style kind of vibe in the front of the restaurant. Then we had the bar in the back, and then we had a quieter dining room so that we had 3 different rooms that had 3 different atmospheres for something for everyone. And then we had our late night crowd, and we had DJs, and we had live music, and you kind of had to try and include everything just to make ends meet.
It's
and
literally throw it at the
Yeah.
wall, see what sticks, and try to
Just keep figuring
appeal
it
and
out.
appease to all of those demographics because you need all of it.
you need everyone.
There's not enough of one singular.
And that is what this community needs to move forward in a positive way, is we need to figure out how to bring all those people together, just like we do in our businesses. We need to do it in our town to move all of us forward together.
Well, that leads Vin to his next question.
So another reason why I would I had the idea to do this show is perfect timing. What years did you operate your business, Donielle?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember.
Roughly, how many years ago?
Well, the reason it made me think of it is because my son, unfortunately, it's in his DNA and wants to be in the restaurant business, and I keep on telling him, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
So he's 20. He's gonna be 24 this summer. So it was, in the mid 90s to 2000.
So if you wanted to change your use and you wanted to adapt and evolve and have a DJ, what was the process that you had to do with the town to evolve your business in hopes to providing another genre or experience for more business?
Well, we stepped out of that business it was, I guess, right before my daughter was born, so maybe like 2005 or 6. And part of the reason was because at that point the North Fork was shifting, and we do need to be all things to all people. And in order to broaden that scope of people we attracted, we needed to reinvent ourselves. And that would have required a full renovation and doing different things. And it does become daunting as a business owner if you are not, I always say, if you are not figuring out who you're going to be tomorrow, you will not be here. Right. Like, you constantly today have to be thinking about who you need to be tomorrow. And we had a decision. Are we either going to do a major renovation, a major investment, go through major aggravation of doing all of that, which the town does not make easy.
Yes.
Or do we pivot? And somebody else, that was the choice we made because I had a young family and the restaurant business is a tough one.
So those hurdles, what I'm hearing, those hurdles closed the business. And so if we were to shift to today, and those hurdles weren't as bad as those hurdles are today.
Those weren't for.
Can you imagine having to go through COVID?
Hold on, Dave.
If
you wanted to pivot and let's say add live music at your venue, what would you have to do to get that to be accomplished? And how much would you have to spend? And how long would that take?
So obviously, everybody's businesses are unique and uniquely positioned. And permitted use is a unique positioning as well. I have a special variance, an exception, that allows me to operate as a bed and breakfast. So we were once actually warehouse zoned because it was all barns. Once we converted and became a home, we then had to go through the process to now get residential, zoning, but then go through the process to get approved to have a bed and breakfast. Now, a bed and breakfast in the town of Southold is only permitted to have a max of 5 rooms, must be owner occupied, and has to be a single family dwelling. Aha. So, people always ask, is this your kitchen too? Well, yes, it is. So you will see children in here, possibly doing homework.
I've seen it.
More than likely not doing homework, just, TikToking. It is, so it's a unique situation. Do I have space for another kitchen in our private family area? Yes, I do. Am I permitted to do that? No, I'm not. So that is a choice that we made as a family, and that's fine. Now, to answer your question, if I wanted to enhance, well, that's not really an option. Yeah. So I am definitely constricted and confined with the ceiling I've got. 1, I cannot increase my rooms, and 2, I cannot increase my permissibility to do things. So I have to be very creative within the scope I've got, which is why if you asked me the question you asked Greg, my answer would have been, well, every morning when I have shift meeting in front of the mirror.
You're awesome.
I was about to ask
I love you, bro.
Thank you very much. But I mean, that's
great.
This is what you do, right? I mean, these are the hats we wear, and the other part of that answer would be no, we would not have a business, and I'm not patting myself on the back either. But people come.
You are the
business. They want me, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they expect me. So
You are the
Well,
business.
that's the beauty of one of our small town values is that you walk into a store and the shop owner is there.
right.
And the difference that makes for the community as a whole in terms of their experience living here is that we say all the time, in small business, the customer's always right. In big business, the customer's never right. And here on the North Fork, there's a different quality to your experience of shopping, eating, stay, anything you do, because we do have small businesses here. But if we want, and,
Yeah,
and I
you're
think
right,
one of the things where there's a disconnect is that people want the North Fork to stay small and to keep that quality and keep that value. But in order to do that, you need to allow those small businesses to survive and evolve.
They do need to, and
Or you're gonna have big business because that's
or
the
you
only
have
other
large
option.
conglomerate
And
groups who
lots
come
of
in
houses.
Where
and
your customer
wants
is always wrong, and
right.
it's gonna
Well,
cost you
because
more
the
money.
small business that is the family owned and operated, that you are going to walk in, and I'm going to say right now, Greg, and I'm not stroking your ego. If I walk in to get a sandwich and you're not there,
Yeah, I'm walking
I'm
in.
always like,
No offense, Chewy.
Well, I mean,
no,
listen,
listen,
a
I love
sandwich
it.
does
No,
taste better when you make it.
I love it.
It's just like a lot. It's like
Yeah.
grandma's in the kitchen making
Right.
sausage.
Well, I also
it tastes
I
better.
want
you
to
know?
talk a little shit. I want to banter
Yeah.
over the counter.
Yeah,
like I mean, I
where's
look
my
forward to that,
Snapple?
you
I want to know where my
You know?
Snapple is. You know, so
my,
true.
My sister has the Renee stores, which Renee is my mom. She started the store, I don't know, we're almost 50 years ago. And
Beautiful store,
it's always
yes.
been family owned and run. And my sister is now getting to the point in her life where I'm sure she would love to slow down. But people...
That's not in the Cardinale DNA. Slowing
No,
down.
it's
That
not.
is.
I'm
That is.
trying.
Yeah, your family doesn't know what it means to retire. Take it easy. Slow down. You know, you guys are like go, go, go.
But how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you make that change when, you can
When
buy
you're the face of the
anything
operation.
online? The
Right.
only reason they're coming there
Right.
is because people come from all over the place. I mean, my sister does homes not just on the North Fork, but literally all over. I mean, she has people doing their house
everywhere.
No, in Florida, and
Wow.
sending
Wow.
it to Westchester, sending all over Texas. I mean, she's done houses everywhere because
amazing.
they love her. But what you don't get when you shop online or shop with big business is that personal experience. And she will come to your house and she will take the time with you. So you're not buying furniture. You're buying the experience. You're buying a design. You're buying her style, her love that she gives to every project that she does. And that's the same with every business on the North Fork that's locally owned and operated. We are not selling food or a bed to sleep in or a house or
Yeah.
whatever your product is.
an experience.
We're selling the love of our community.
Yeah.
And that translates to the people who are receiving it. And that's what they're here for. So again, we go back to we're sharing the same values. We just need to discuss and figure out
Way forward.
how do we move forward with those values and hear each other out so we can figure that out. And I think, people sometimes feel, and I'm going to just jump into the sort of the two sides of the argument. I think what everyone agrees on is we don't want to be, and not that there's something wrong with Nassau County or Western Suffolk, but
Right.
we're different.
We want to be
And
rural.
we want to stay different. But how do we keep the low density? How do we keep those beautiful views of all of the farms and the vineyards and the beautiful water views and keep that character?
Keep Oregon Road.
Yes.
You know?
How do we keep all that? And some people think that's just, well, we have to stop growth. We have to stop change. We have to shut everything down. And I think look, I've been here over 50 years. My family's been here over 80 years.
You mean 21 years? You're 21. You're 21
well,
today.
Before I was born.
Yeah.
So, but I remember what it was in the 70s, the 80s, and so I've seen the pictures of my father's family in the 40s, and I see how we've grown and changed. But I challenge anyone to go anywhere else today
Yeah.
and 30 years ago and have it be even recognizable.
Yeah.
Unless it's already been so developed that there's no place more to develop.
Wouldn't it be nice to have a
are
master
great.
site plan of the North Fork? So we know what we fit into. I mean, people buy things as of right, and then they buy it, and then they find out that they can't do
They
it
have no
as
rights.
of right was.
As
They
of
have no
right.
rights.
So
Yeah.
you're buying something for a premium for a certain usage, and then you find out you can't do what you want to do under the usage.
But
Or
That's crazy.
That's like what I mean when everybody talks about this property, that property. If you buy something and it is allowed to be built. I mean, this is like
That's the
common,
whole point why you paid for that.
like you
Zoned
can't
to do
right,
Zone that.
you're-
You paid for that.
The minute you ask for an exception, then the game changes.
Right.
But if you were like,
Right.
As
If
of
it's
right.
as of
When
right.
when we did the hardware store on the corner here, we
Yeah.
had a big
Yeah.
topic of
Yep.
conversation in
Yeah.
the deli, right? And all we said was, if they're allowed to build a
Right.
5,000
Whatever
square
it's-
foot,
whatever they
6,000
paid
square
for.
feet.
let them build it.
Right.
Not that
Listen,
I'm-
no, but I'm just saying, like you have to allow them to build it.
Right.
Right.
Because now
100%.
you're just if they wanted 10,000,
Ah.
that's fair to say,
Right.
hey guys, we can't do it.
Right.
6,000, you can start tomorrow.
Right.
Because now you're just changing the rules.
Well, that's it.
the
That was
problem.
kind
and
of
it's,
criminal. What
but
happened.
and those are the problems that I say. I've argued with my mother-in-law. I said,
Yes, in the end. But
Yeah.
I'm going to go, and Greg just said it. If you bought it as of right,
Mm-hmm.
and you were not asking for any exceptions, no problem.
You should get a stamp of approval.
Right.
And now
but as
I
soon as
live-
you put your hand up and say, no, that's
Yeah.
not going to work for our model, that's not, we need this building to be this size and this building to be this size.
Well, that's why
To be
people say I'd rather
sustainable.
ask
Right.
for forgiveness than permission.
Right.
Because permission opens the door for a no.
Right.
Forgiveness, you got to
But
ask.
But I'm
you
just
ask-
saying,
you
those
know?
are two different
But if
conversations,
you ask
right?
for-
I mean,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
if you ask,
If
if you're
you're-
allowed to build 5 and you want a 10,000, and they say no to the 10, you should still be allowed to build the 5.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're all in agreement.
Yeah,
We're all in
yeah,
agreement.
yeah.
Like,
Yes,
and-
we're all
and
agreeing.
quite frankly, it doesn't mean we have to like it.
Correct.
Because with the hardware store, I'll be honest, I live right there. The traffic, I could hear all of those, and I don't, look, traffic, that's a whole nother conversation we can
Right.
get into. But I get it. My nephew, you heard it in your store, he got hit
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
off
yeah,
a level,
exactly.
a horrible accident. We're lucky he's alive. It is a tough corner, all that stuff. That's all true. I live right there. I know how hard it is, but all of that aside,
Right.
they had the right
It's
to
as of
do
right.
it. So I might not have liked it,
You
but
could have bought it.
then I should have bought it.
Well,
Right.
it's funny.
And if you can't
Good
buy
sense.
it,
You could have bought
and-
it.
well,
Yeah, you could have bought
But
it.
if
Yeah.
you can't
Hey,
buy
why didn't
it-
you buy it?
or you didn't buy it, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
If you
Did
don't
you
own
buy
it,
Donielle? You own this. Are you plugging your land?
if you don't own it,
Yeah.
and the person who owns it has a right that the town has already put in their master plan, or what, you gotta let them do it.
Exactly.
Well, we had to,
Yeah.
when we
It's not
opened up
fair.
in July. Before we really started our renovation, we had the opportunity to instead try to go across the street where Lombardi's is now. At the time, I was partners with my brother, and we both decided, no, we're where we'll be. So we proceeded. We opened in July. Lombardi's opened. We didn't know at the time Lombardi's was going to come in there. They opened in September. To be honest with you, we were allowed to curse on this. Right? I was shitting in my pants because
Right.
I was like, wow,
How
I
are
know
we
who
gonna do
Lombardi's
this?
is. Like, they're
Yeah.
a monster.
Right.
I never want them to leave. It's the
Right.
best neighbor in the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because they're it's like, but
Colleagues, not
compliments.
competitors.
but,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they
right.
were
Yeah.
allowed to do that. I'm
Right.
not happy about it. I was nervous. Well,
Right, of course
They're going to
it's-
do.
yeah.
Listen, Ammirati's, Lombardi's are like.
Yeah, who's gonna go
Who's
to?
going to win? and, like,
McDonald's, Burger King. You can
they're-
see them
right.
always together.
But you
Yeah.
know, but what I'm saying is like that's just the game.
Yeah.
You know, they're allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Like you can't. Okay, now you got to toughen up,
Right.
make better sandwiches, and be competitive.
But that goes back to
friendly at the
another
same
reason
point,
why
though,
you
too,
are
know?
there.
Personality.
When you walk in, they need to see you. It's
Yes.
another reason
It's a
why.
different exactly.
Listen,
But
you
you-
can both slide prosciutto paper thin, but when you're
It's
making the
different.
sandwich,
Exactly.
I want to be there.
But you also like that's my point though. They had a right, just like they had
And
a
a lot
right.
of people cannot.
Kind of let them do it.
They cannot make it
Yeah, yeah.
paper
Just
thin.
just to be
But
clear.
I want to
Yeah.
say Greg can slice. Greg knows how to
Yeah,
slice.
no, exactly.
I just want to give it to my boy.
You said they
to
both
slice.
can. No, they
Yeah,
both
yeah,
can.
yeah.
There we
Good
go.
point. There we
But
go.
that's a common fear. I think people fear competition. Like, okay, Orlowski's Hardware. Like, my whole life have gone in there. I'm still a loyal
Yeah, we
customer,
love
all
them.
that stuff. But so I didn't want to see them have to deal with that. But at the same time, you see Lombardi's wasn't bad. I'll give you an example. We have my dad has a property that years ago every tenant was food and beverage. It just happened to work out that way, and it was the most successful that property has ever been.
It's a food mecca.
Because people
Everyone
go,
went
I'll
there.
meet you at Meadow Plaza. We'll figure out what we're going to eat.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
yeah.
Because you become a destination for that. Look at our vineyards.
Well,
are a perfect
There
example.
it is. You
there
become
it
a
is.
destination.
There it is.
So you
That's it.
can't have too many farms. You can't have too many wineries. You can't have too
Correct.
many things.
Look at the
Because
places serve food
they
and
all
sandwiches on
do
Love Lane.
better.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Love
more
Lane, right.
quality agents we have, the more faith people have in our industry, the more we all succeed. Every time Doug sells a house, that's one more thing to make me feel like, yay, I can get mine sold because here, he's doing it.
Right, we're supporting
We're
each other's
learning from
comps
each
and
other.
each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very collective, group of people that you're working together. The thing is that people say, like you said, real estate. Yeah, people, do you have competition? Nobody will portray Donielle better than Donielle. No one will portray me better than me. We're all characters. This is the stage, right? So if you like me, you're going to work with me.
Right.
Doug's my meatball. That's my guy.
Exactly.
You know? And then someone's going to work with that guy over there that wears the suit because that's what they perceive. You know, there was a great thing on Instagram I saw the other day. I don't know who I sent it to, if any of you guys, but it said, you know, you have a vision of who you think you are. And then everyone you meet has a vision of who they think you are. And you'll never be the vision that you think you are to everybody. So there's so many little perceptions of us. We're all living in these little parallel universes together of how does Donielle look at me? And how do you, there's 4 people looking at me right now, and I don't know how you look at me,
And
but
I think it's
I know
important
how I
that
look.
we all remember that
I'm thinking meatballs.
there is
Meatballs.
yeah, exactly.
Meatballs. Oh, do you have meatballs today in your menu?
Tomorrow.
We
Tomorrow.
don't want. We do
Tomorrow.
not
I'm
want
hungry
a
right now.
one size fits all.
Right,
Right. Like
right.
that's not how we want things to go because that's what makes not only our community but our country
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, we want to
Is that
be
we have that
individuality.
diversity.
Adapt.
Right. And I like to jokingly say, and obviously my world is very unique, but and it's small. But my initial marketing come out was not your grandma's B&B.
Right.
Now,
right.
let me tell you, that did not land well
Yeah,
with some people. And I was like, no, you're misunderstanding. I'm not knocking. but,
Grandma's
like,
B&B.
Because some people really want to go to Grandma's B&B,
One,
and that is
100%.
the
I am
character.
telling
that's what-
people,
Right.
Hey,
do
here's
not
how I
come to me
differentiate.
if you're looking for a classic, old, beautiful Victorian with lots of doilies and lace and fine china. I've got 2 kids, a dog.
TikTok.
We're a young family. It's chaos. Like we're loud. There's a pool table and like a vineyard in
fun.
the backyard.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's an
But
experience.
that's not always going to be the right fit. And it's important that we know that. So I don't look at it as competition. I look at it as an opportunity
I remember
to
doing this
give you a
on-
great experience somewhere else.
Well,
I remember doing this seminar thing years ago at one of our global networking events for Sotheby's, and one of the classes was called Your Yellow Pants, and I'm like, what the heck does that mean? So it got my attention. I went in there, and that was the whole message. Was they show this guy standing in this square with all these people, and he's got these yellow pants, and he stands out, and they were basically asking each of us to ask ourselves, what's your yellow pants? What makes you different? And I think it's a great message
like it.
because, like Doug said, I'll often tell people, like my old assistant used to always joke with me when I was going out for a listing appointment, for instance. She'd go, "You going to convince somebody else not to list with you?" I was like, "If it's not the right fit."
Well,
you
that's
know?
it. You,
and
you
that's
said it
okay.
perfectly. Listen, not everyone is your client. I tell everyone, when we train a coach, I want to use the word training, when we're coaching agents to be successful, I said, you can't be everybody to everyone. You got to work with people because this is a marriage. You sign an agreement for 6 months, 12 months, whatever. You have reputational risk. If you cannot connect with them and understand what your duties are and responsibilities are on the initial meeting, and if you can't carry out on those, it's not worth it because there's no amount of money that's worth it because it's small amounts of money, right? Even $100,000, $200,000 commission is a small amount of money to your reputational risk,
reputation, it's not
right?
worth
To who
No
you
dollar
were.
amount.
Word is bond, right?
Absolutely.
We came from a generation where if I said I'm going to do something, I shook your hand, we were going to do it. It was that simple, right? It wasn't like, oh, well, I kind of meant it, but I didn't mean it. No, it was like if someone called you out for a fight, you were going to go be there after school, right? We're just old school guys and girls, you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
we're going to show up. Like, you call me out, I'm going to show up. It's, it's how it's going to go. And that's fine. But that's the biggest thing today is people not being, the word is not the same, people's values, and then we talked a lot about today about hospitality between Donielle's restaurant, Greg, and you have the B&B. Let's go back to farming.
Yeah.
Let's go back to
But
farming
before we go to
supports
farming-
these
Okay,
three.
I gotta
Yeah,
segue.
before we go to
Oh,
farming.
I was gonna say, wait, hold on,
wait,
there's so
wait,
many
wait,
more things to
wait.
say.
Wait. We
Talk.
brought up competition. I want to bring up competition. And Dave, a reason why I brought you on the show is because the elephant in the room around town these days is the moratorium on resorts and hotels. And that would directly be a competitor for you. I hope you don't see it that way. I'd like to know, as a competitor, as a resident, moreover, how do you feel about the moratorium and hotels in general?
Okay, here we go. Now we're getting let's
Take your jackets off.
let's do this. No, all right. First and foremost, I'm going to say on the record, I am not a fan of moratoriums. Period. I don't think that is a a solution, and it's certainly not a good way to govern or manage. I understand sometimes it's necessary, but when it becomes a crutch, it's dangerous. And so I think that there should be more clear, definitive rules and regulations so that we don't have to go down that road.
That's a great point.
So
That's a great
that's
point.
that. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying anybody's moratorium was good or bad. Just saying in general, I'm personally not a fan.
Are you saying though, because there's so many unknowns when somebody applies for a project and so many things that get changed on the spot, that we have to have moratoriums to slow things down?
Well, it seems to be that's what we're all told, is that all of a sudden, oh, well, there's so many applications or there's so much this, and we don't have the clear answer, so we're going to put a moratorium in, and then we can get our answers. Are we getting our answers?
No.
Right.
That's my question. My question is, okay, fine. So you did your moratorium. I'm not a huge fan of the concept, but I understand it's there for a reason, and I'm sure it works.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, okay, so let's see how it worked. What did you do in that window? How long was that window? Was it 6 months? Okay, that's not bad.
How transparent is that window?
How transparent is that window? Was it a year? Okay, that's kind of a long time. By the way, what about the applications that are already in? How does that work? Usually, they stay in.
As of right,
Ish. Right. Ish.
As of right.
That's
as
a whole
As
other
of right.
All right, so anyway, we could go about moratoriums
Yeah,
all
I got
day.
it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point.
Okay, Greg.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, do you want me,
Nope,
So
please finish.
you asked about, hotels and how would that affect me? When I first heard about a few different projects that were being presented around the area, the same answer I will give as when I was called by a few different media outlets during our huge issues with, short-term rentals or Airbnb. And
Right.
people are like, oh, Dave, how do you feel about this? And I said, well, I don't really care as long as, we level the playing field. Like, look, if this is the rule, then that's the rule. Oh, by the way, if you're supposed to collect occupancy tax and sales tax, you should be collecting occupancy tax and sales tax. If you want people to come every night, then you probably should go down and get an application to become a bed and breakfast, because there is another option, right? Well, I don't want to be there. Oh, I get that. Well, then if you're not going to be there, understand that the burden now falls on other parts of the community, like local police department. If there's a party going on, they can't call you and tell you to shut it down. They have to call the cops. So there are reasons why we have these systems in place. And so my thing is level the playing field, right? And don't get angry, but make sure the rules are clear, whatever they are. And we all have a choice, right? I don't like the fact that technically there's no limitation on rooms to a short-term rental, right? Like for me, that stinks. Yeah. I got a really big place. I could definitely carve in a few more rooms. However, if I do that, I'm changing my status. So that means I become a short-term rental. Well, now I know that means I'm only permitted to sell for 2 weeks at a time. I can't do one-nighters. So I make a choice. 5 rooms, I can sell anytime. Right? Like that's how it works.
But then you got people with residential property basically running a one-door hotel, which an Airbnb is, right? They're running
Who
that.
didn't have a public hearing.
Didn't have a public
neighbors
hearing.
didn't show up and get to weigh in on their concerns. And
It's not,
do they have
right.
parking? Did they go through site plan?
Nothing.
All these things that we have to do. So my thing was level the playing field, right?
I agree with that.
Now, let's go to larger hotels. How does that work for me? Well, my first thought was, hey, that's awesome. Because then I can go to that large hotel and say, welcome to the neighborhood. You're going to have these great brides that are going to come and want to hold their event. And to be honest, they don't want to be with all their guests. So you're going to send me, the bride and the bridal party, who will come and stay at this quaint, fun place. And then they get whisked over and show up at your huge establishment. So I just look for the opportunity to kind of, step into that.
But that's, once again, you're selling the values of why someone should come to you, like they make the sandwich.
Right.
But
by the way, I also have to actually get up and go over to that new place,
Yeah.
shake their hand, welcome them, and say hello and introduce myself.
Which
Right.
only
And
happens
Right.
in a small town.
Correct. And I will also
small
say
town values.
small town values, right? The reason why most of my success as a concierge is because we are in a small town.
Right.
Because guess what? Everybody can use Open Table.
Right.
But when Open Table says there's no more tables left, and I can call the owner and say, hey, I got 4 people who are really awesome, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, all right, I got 4 walk-in slots.
Yeah.
I can do 6:15 or I can do 7:45. I'll take it. Thanks.
But that's every
that's
business
small
owner
town.
on the North Fork, if we're working properly, we're all like North Fork Concierge Service.
Of course.
And so that's, again, why we all have to work together, because those relationships make the experience of being here on the North Fork that much better for all of our customers.
There's a
And you
premium to
do
pay
it so well,
white
because
glove
I've
service.
done it with you, where I've called and said, hey, I've got some people, hold on, I'm going to call this colleague and this colleague and this colleague. We can give them 2 rooms here, 3 rooms
Right.
there. I mean, it's
about
amazing
people who know
what you
people,
do.
and let's do that.
Yeah.
Like, let's make
And you
the
can do that.
experience great, and that's
By
what it's
the
all
way,
about.
the restaurant owner keeps 100% of that sale. They don't have to pay open table the percentage for the reservation.
Ah, look at you!
You know,
I
you
like
have to
that.
think about all
Yes,
these things
we
because,
do.
and to be fair, to be
It
devil's
matters.
advocate, I also want to hear from the community members who, to be fair, may not be thinking of these things.
Right.
I'm hoping that this show opens some eyes, makes them think, "Wow, this is my neighbor. They are also they're also local business owners." I have to consider you have to consider the ramifications of these decisions and how it will affect your sustainability, Greg. That hotel, I'd like to come back to you. What do you think, and this is kind of like a leading question, but do you think that hotel will help or hurt your business?
I think it would definitely help. I like these things. I think we need it. I think it needs to be tastefully done.
Yes.
Okay,
And
I
I
was just going to
agreed.
say
So-
I didn't finish my
Okay.
statement, and all I
Sorry,
wanted to
Dave.
say was we do have this cool tool called the comprehensive plan,
Yes.
right? And within that
All for
comprehensive
it.
plan, right, it's great, and it does talk about community character, right? And community character matters, and that's how we do preserve what we've got, and that's how we do keep our charm. So, am I going to always be a cheerleader for some mega structure? No, because it might not fit with community character. However, again, let's go back to what is the property? Does it fit? Is it of as of right? Is permitted use there? If all of those boxes are checked, then okay, great. Now let's talk community character. How are you going to make it work in the community? McDonald's could probably be the best conversation out here going, right? I mean,
Amazing.
people would lose their skull. 7-Eleven, oh my God. Remember when 7-Eleven was open? People were like, what? Meanwhile, I'm like, okay, you realize it's a busted up parking lot with an old falling down building and broken glass everywhere. Is 7-Eleven going to be that bad? No. They made them put in plantings. They don't have a big neon sign. Like, they had to adhere to things.
Do it
They
tastefully.
did.
We have
It's
the
done tastefully.
fanciest fast food restaurant. Actually, I think
Hands
they rank
down.
it as one of the top 10 in the world.
Yeah.
believe it or
Well,
not.
we
Greg,
said,
let's go-
like what you said,
poor Greg.
we started saying. No,
Sorry.
no, it's
I know,
like
I'm
how it's
sorry.
tasteful-
He's like
no, how it's
waving his
tastefully-
hand.
how it's tastefully done. Because think about it. So I live off of Cox Neck, so down by Strong's is doing it. Whether you agree with their project, whatever. But if they're allowed to do it, now we have whether you like them or not, everything they've done is better. Matamor, their place
Yeah.
is better than
Yeah.
what, right? They
Yeah.
create jobs. Your family, that building
Strong's
is
family has great values.
great, and
Great
I'm
values.
fans of that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is
Same
they
here.
have they've done it better. They've
Yeah.
taken stuff and made it better.
Better. They've improved.
Your family with the
Right.
bank, that's you. Are we really concerned that they're not going to make it look nice?
Right.
Exactly.
Like it's not going to be like a cheap Best Western or a budget
No.
in here.
Well,
No.
You know,
Okay,
like
thank
we went to
you.
school with someone.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention his name, but he's
Yeah.
a developer. His properties, they're nicer than what they were. The property,
He does
the
a great
Capital,
job. He
the
does a
Capital
beautiful
One Bank.
job. He's a great developer.
That was a fenced-in property. The
And
Hudson
cares.
City,
Yeah.
and
He
nobody
cares
cares.
about-
Right.
Town's
It was
biggest eyesore
dilapidated.
that was.
And they
Right.
and your family
Awful.
lives here. His family lives here. The Strong, you know, we're
Yeah.
So like when you talk about people developing things, I'm all for it as long as
Positive
it fits their-
development, yeah.
And then,
Responsible
but
growth.
then you also
positive
have the
growth.
people that were living here. You know, like
Correct.
you're raising your family here. It's not like
They're not
these-
gonna trash their own backyard. Come
Exactly.
on,
What do you
like-
guys think we're gonna do here? You know, so I just get when people start talking, it's just no.
Right.
I go,
it can't be no.
it can't be because you need. How else are we going to continue? School enrollment's down. There's people not buying. You know, like what's the plan? How are we going to move forward? How are your kids going to be able to live here?
Right.
You like you said.
And the answer can't just continue to be, oh, we'll just raise taxes.
It
Yeah, well,
can't be.
guess what?
So I just
Well, when they sold the bank, you know, my mom worked there, and a lot of people's parents worked there. That was our manufacturing. You know, that was our place where anyone skilled or
I
unskilled
think it was over
could work there.
300 jobs, if I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, could work, and it was a big thing. And my mom, when she lost her job, fortunately, I had the insurance business. She said, "Come work with us." But how many moms didn't have a place to go? You know, now I see some of these people my mom worked with. Some are realtors I just saw. One, you know, some work at Total Dental, like local places. But they had to find something else and had to learn new skills, which they didn't possibly have at that time. My mom wasn't a computer savvy person. I mean, fortunately, she knew enough about the computer to work, but how many people were lost? So, like, you got a
We
building sitting
lost
there.
a lot of people moved away.
A lot of people.
Yeah, it's
I
really
just think
sad.
it's.
Yeah,
I
it
think
doesn't make
I'm
sense to
all
leave things
for-
without-
As long as it's allowed, it shouldn't even be a
Well,
conversation.
why should a building sit there like that and not
Why
be
do you
able to
do it?
utilize?
What are the other uses that could be done with that building that wouldn't impact the school district, emergency services, and/or traffic? I attest that the overnight guest burdens the roadways 50 to 60%, 40 to 50% less than the day tripper, and it's only logical
So
because
happy you
they're
said
driving here, and guess what? They're not doing, being on the roads on the way back.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
you want it for a use for that property? What else would you put that wouldn't burden the other schools?
Not to
Traffic?
mention the fact that, by the way, your overnight guests, and you could
They-
break it down so easily. The economic
They
value
spend
they
3
have.
times more.
I'm all
Correct.
for it
As
as long as
opposed to-
Ammirati's is making all the food. Like,
Yeah,
I'm all
right.
for it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If Ammirati's is the
Kids are trying to get us to be in the cafeteria. That's
yeah,
why
that's what
kids
we
want
want.
that. Let's
That's
do
what we
the
want. I'll support it. I'll give it the vote.
No, but it's only going to help me. I mean, it would create jobs for here. Well, these kind of things would create jobs and stuff like that. I think as long as they're tastefully done and allowed to do it, it shouldn't even be a conversation. It should be just let's move forward.
I agree.
Well, because I will say, if we keep changing as of right property, right, and we keep diminishing the value of property that people are willing to pay, so property is obviously an asset, right, and you set the bar of what an asset's worth based on demand and supply. Well, if there's only so much of a map that's allowed to have a certain usage, then that map becomes that sector becomes valuable, that cluster.
Tax
But
base.
then if you change that when someone buys it, then what is the value to the person buying it? And that's
Potential.
going to scare people from away too.
Right.
People are going to be like, well, I'm afraid to deal with. I'm afraid to buy in this township because I don't know what I'm buying into.
Well, there is
Right.
the
You
what
know
if
who's
factor.
not going to be afraid? The people who are afraid, I think, are local people because we're the ones who know deeply
Yeah.
what you're up against. And so the small business owner is the one who becomes afraid. The small business owner is the one you're deterring. Your neighbor, your children's friends' parents, the
Right.
kids who are growing up in this community. They're the ones who will start
They see such
pull
opposition.
away from
Right.
that. And guess who does come in? Guess who's not afraid? Big business.
business.
Correct.
Where
So
the
this is
customer
where I
always
say,
wrong.
Yeah.
where I say where
point.
we've got it a little twisted in that, and I get it because I want it to stay as beautiful and charming and all of that stuff as everybody else. This is my home. I
Yeah,
will never ever
I live
call
here.
anywhere else home but the North Fork. But if we scare all of our local families and local people who love the North Fork and want to invest in it and make it where they make a living and support their families, those people will leave. And there will be very few leftovers.
Absolutely.
And what's going to move in is
The Hamptons.
big business.
Right.
And that's not our North
Small
Fork
town values.
our small
No.
town values. It's not what we're going for. So, because they're not afraid of a battle. They're
No,
not
no.
afraid of any
They
of
have
that
deep
stuff.
pockets.
They have
They've
deep
got
pockets, they'll
lawyers.
keep their-
They've got. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
Like,
they
we'll
don't
see you in
care.
court.
So,
Game on.
and I think that actually brings us more to the conversation of agriculture. And, we want to keep our farm fields, farming something, but you've got to let the farmer sell their product
Retail.
because,
Yes.
and you've got to open things up a little bit for them to make it a viable business. or
Farmers
you're going to
are
have
the
houses.
backbone of America.
Of the North Fork.
But not just the North. I'm saying
No, of
America.
America.
Yes,
Hands
Of
down.
America. Farmers are the backbone of America. Like,
Because if we're not feeding our people,
then what are we doing?
do you eat?
And we were talking
we're
earlier
eating
about
stuff that's not real food, which is what's happening in our country.
yes, and that's what
Oh,
Vin was talking earlier about why he wants to sustain and how important it is for the health of our community, our children, our nation.
Our vastness.
Yeah,
Our
I mean,
fresh air.
seriously, I mean, it's everything. So, Vin, what is so important to you right now that we can let our viewers know that you want them to be aware of regarding farming and agriculture that you're here to tell everyone?
What I would like to tell everyone is the story that most people are afraid to come forward with because they don't want their businesses hindered by wrongful labels of support for the big developer, which I'm not a big developer. I rent, right? I'm here because I found solace in the soil. I found I found a profession that didn't involve negativity, drama, toxicity. And here I have now, I went from the dark to the light. Like, it's life. It's what I'm doing. I could plant a seed and I could watch it grow and I could nurture it. I could bring it to market and I could sell it to sustain. So now you have the burdens of labor costs. You have the burdens of inflation. You have the burdens of fuel prices, chemical prices, fertilizer prices. So your risk versus reward for the farmer is significantly skewed as is. Bureaucracy. So for example, a vineyard,
Has been for
a large vineyard,
long.
their labor, to put it in perspective for people, their labor is about 750,000. If you have close to 200 acres, your labor is at least 750,000. The overtime, so the vineyard worker works averages 70 hours a week, 40 of which would be straight time. 60. It just went down. So they're looking to overtime to lower the overtime threshold to 40 hours eventually. That's 30 hours of overtime for the vineyard. That bottle of white wine will be $50, $55 by the time that happens. So agriculture is on the ropes. Farmers will be coming in here to tell you their story, to tell you I'm not full of shit, to tell you they're hurting, and we need to evolve together as a community.
Do you want to give them a teaser, though, and tell them why that 40 hours is not realistic for a farmer?
Yeah, because they work 14,
cold weather.
15-hour days.
Cold weather, by the way. You can't say that they can't work more than 5 consecutive days. Well, guess what? They might be out of work for
12
5
right,
months.
14. Well, not even that, but I mean, just bad weather in general. Like, there's certain things you can and can't do with the land when the weather's operating. So
You
all
gotta
these,
make hay when the sun shines.
exactly. So, and now full disclosure, I mean, I'm the son of a man who was with New York State Farm Bureau for 44 years.
Oh, boy.
I grew up in this world.
I want to talk about the Farm Bureau. Dave.
Different
Different
day.
topic.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying. So I grew up hearing these conversations at my dinner table about, there's ideals, but a farm is not a business that
Needs
is
to evolve
in a box and has a front door and a back door and lights. And no, it's a whole living entity. And
It's a
so
way of life.
well, it's a way of life, but you have to really consider all of that when you're kind of setting the rules, so to speak. And you can't just work off of a normal, like, oh God, they have overtime up to 40 hours. Like,
Yeah, it's so
well,
true.
It doesn't work like that.
We came out here for agriculture, I believe. I did. I feel agriculture is the backbone of the North Fork. It's vast. Agriculture keeps vast. Land preservation, however, it's not vast. It's overgrown. If it's overgrown in a hamlet, it's wasted tax base. We get into traffic at a later date. We really need to hear the voices of the farmers, local business owners. We need to collectively and responsibly develop a plan forward. I would love to see the adoption of the comprehensive plan, because if it goes unused, I look at it as a grand larceny of tax dollars. How much did they spend for that comprehensive plan? And to completely ignore it and not use it once, and I had a case that the comprehensive plan actually worked on my side, and I'm all for the comprehensive plan to be our guide.
Well, it needs to be